Right, you know, we're never really done with this. There's always something else to explore, and there are perhaps better ways to do what we just did. One thing I wanted to show you is the tool we've explained in an earlier session of the Daily Dose, and that is with the curve tool. With the curve tool, you can go and, for instance, draw a path along some of these curved branches. Let's say you can start, let's clear the current path, and then start a curve going from here to here to here. And the moment you have a fourth point, it will start doing a spline interpolation. So you get some nice curvy curves going along that, and you can then select your brush. Let's say we go with the shape of a different leaf this time. Let's take this one. Kind of looks like an acorn, and see what happens when we render it. So along that, let's go minimize that. We can now go and render that along that path. Now it's probably very small since we don't see it. Let's make it a little bit larger. Make sure we do have, let's see what else, opacity at full value, so we actually get to see that, and render that. Oh yeah, it's the steps are way too close together here, so we need a much bigger step or distance there. Let's undo and perhaps choose a different color for the leaves, otherwise we'll have it brown on brown. Doesn't look too good. There you go, finish that. Okay, so we got the leaves going up along that path now. Let's make them a little bit bigger. Again, for that we might need to turn them into custom brushes. Or we could, yeah, that will probably be the way to do it. But before we do that, let's try something else. Let's adjust, and that's the beauty of the path, is we can adjust the path. Perhaps we want them on the outer side of this branch. So you get to finagle and to fine-tune where these brushes will actually go through. So this is a slightly different approach from you doing a very quick brush stroke and be done with it and not think about it. You want to kind of like in an illustration scenario, do a very precise layout of where these points go and create curves of a very particular nature. So if you erase that, put the tree back in there, or actually let's put that in the swap buffer. Where is it? There under the swap buffer. Jump to that, put it right in there, jump back with the keyboard J, and we can erase it from the main buffer, but we can also then show it by blending it with the swap buffer. So we can erase, and the only thing that's going to be erased are the leaves that we draw in there. So let's go and render the leaves along that path, and we can go and erase that if we're not happy with it. We can give it a different opacity, different color, perhaps more of a dark green, saturate the green, and erase and draw it there. Alright, so now again, what would be really good is if the leaves could actually change orientation as they line up along that path, just like we saw that doing the manual interactive painting. And you can do that too. You know, it's simply by a matter of going to the brush settings and perhaps tag it so it stays there if we're going to use that a few more times, and enabling the angle. Check that. Erase and redraw, and now you see the leaves line up. Now they may not be lining up the way you want it to, because they are kind of going in the opposite direction. But that's where you need to find. That's where you need to rotate the picture of that brush that you're actually using. That's something that's easily done if you have it as a custom brush. So again, what we might want to do is convert this internal to custom, right? And then as a custom brush, store it here. And now you can do all sorts of rotations. The first one here is a scale, the second one is a rotation, so you can rotate it one way or another and say, yeah, let's try that, or rotate it the other way, something like this. And then once you got that, let's see if we can go back to the brush tool, erase, and draw. Oh, look at that, it took the new, but it did not follow the angle or change the angle as a function of the path. How is that, even though we have the box checked here? Well, remember, for custom brushes, we don't do the advanced transformations like scaling and rotation unless you go to the custom brush here and allow the custom brush to be transformed. Okay, and that's because if you happen to have a very large custom brush and you are on a slow old computer, it would be a little bit more time consuming to do that transform of all these pixels. So we let you choose whether you really want to do that. Right, and now here when we rotate it, you see now the leaves change angle based on the path, but also based on that initial angle that we see here, because what we're actually doing is changing the orientation of the image. We're transforming the image that's in the brush, right? So now we could, for instance, go and move some of the points here, perhaps every other point, do a little crisscross slalom here, and redraw that. Where is it? Right here. So we get another sequence there. Now that's cool when you have a lot of time, when you have plenty of time to adjust these points, but you know, sometimes you just want to get going really fast, and yet still you prefer to use the curve tool, because even that first leaf is going to have a good orientation. You may remember that when we drew it manually with just the plain brush tool, it did kind of transform, but that very first one was not always consistent with the remaining ones. It was kind of off because I didn't know yet after the first tap down which way I was going to head. So what you could do here is actually use the brush tool, but it would be nice if we could do that in a brush stroke mode, and there is a way to do that. We've seen that before. You can go, there's some modes here, the auto mode, right? Automatically stroke the path after using the draw points tool. So you can use this mode, or you can use this one really is the one you want to use here, the freehand draw curve. So when you draw freehand like this and kind of go that path, when you let go, bingo, it draws the brushes. So all you got to do now is find your right angle, something like this. Perhaps change the color and actually make sure it is in matte mode so it uses that color. Otherwise it's painting it as is, using the color that's on the brush, in the brush image. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger. Again, that also changes it back to the color, unless we actually store all these current settings in another instance. Let's store that. And so now we have hopefully a better use of that. When we click here, oh no, look at that, it actually defaults to the color. So if we want it in matte, we need to switch to that. But we can definitely now either paint directly, or we can go with the curve tool and have it paint for us. And again, the steps will control how dense these leaves are. Let's see if we get it to some value somewhere in between. There you go. And so hopefully that will give you some additional ideas of what to experiment with if you need yet different styles and different appearances. The beauty of it being a custom brush is that you can do so much more to it. You can make them bigger. You can have them appear. You can, load different images. You can totally transform that picture into something different. For instance, you could go into, let's go to the custom brush here, to the swap buffer, jump to that, and erase the tree. Jump back, erase all that too, since we don't need it right now. But let's draw the brush once here, and then make that a different color. Let's say for instance go and add or subtract some color with the filters. You can go to adjust color, and for instance, I don't know, add some more red or some more green, right? And when you subtract it, white also turns, the background turns into a different color. But when you add to it, wherever there is something that's not quite white yet, you may be able to add a little bit more of that tint. Now, one thing that you could do also is, let's say if you want to give it some greenish tint here, like so, okay, and then pick that up as a new custom brush. So pick it up like that, and key it, of course. So you right click there, and key it to the green background. Adjust the low clips a little bit so it doesn't give you too much of that border. There are some tools also to get rid of the white halo or black halo or green, whatever color you're keying to. We can explore those in a future daily dose. So now we have a brush here that we can certainly store, and it's going to have that green component right in it. So that's an image now that we can paint and work with. Let's go back to the white erase color and put our tree back in there, and let's see if we can go and jump back to this buffer, pull our what's the tool there, the curve tool, and we are still in this mode where we do freehand drawing and automatic is enabled there. Okay, so freehand and automatic. Again, we may need to make sure that we don't have too high a density on the steps here. Let's give it about 100. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, a little bit tighter, and perhaps also a little bit smaller. There you go. Now again, if you want to just populate this tree with a lot of random trees or leaves, you may want to also add some random positioning, random size, random angle, all sorts of other parameters, maybe the hue, although that one will probably only take effect if you're actually in matte mode. Otherwise the colors that are in the oh no, look at that. Yeah, this is a color mode, and it's actually still multiplying the hue to that. So perfect. You can go and have a tree full of leaves. You can still change the angle on those as well if you want them in different orientation.